What was that?
What were you lifting in that video the other day that I saw the
What was it?
deadlift?
Like deadlift or a squat?
It was a deadlift.
If it was a deadlift, it would have been 140, 150, maybe.
Cool. Cool. What did you start at when you started training? What weight did you start at?
Um, oh, like I started, you know, just like lightweight, but probably like in the first year, like a good deadlift for me was like, I started like deadlift around 80, and then like a good deadlift was like 100 kg, and I was probably about, oh man, I was like about 73, 74 kg when I started lifting, and like now I'm
Oh, so you
88 kg.
started off above your body weight.
I suppose so, yeah. I mean, deadlift like to like deadlift your body weight is not much, to do. It's like you
Well, you see,
should like anyone moderately not I wouldn't even say fit. I would just say moderately able body should be able to deadlift their own body weight.
I mean, I was like a limp. I was like a wet noodle when I started weight training. So yeah,
I've been doing some physical work for a few years, like working in, like doing carpentry and stuff like that. So humping shit around. So I already had some base level of like strength just
uh-huh.
from daily needful.
hmm No, I was so weak when I started, and I took it real slow with those kind of lifts as well because I started off with a trainer for the first few months, but then when I was on my own, I was very cautious about snapping my back in half, basically.
Oh yeah, you have to be because like proper form is everything. Like
hmm
if you lift with proper form, it's rare that you'll injure yourself in the gym. It's other stuff that tends to injure you. Like I had the worst back injury I ever got was actually unloading a pallet full of really like drywall, like sheetrock for like doing plastering. And it's like
hmm
4 foot by 8 foot boards of sheetrock. And like I just fucking trashed my back doing that one day. And like that put me in a bad shape for months where I thought like I was gonna be like permanently in serious shape. But
hmm
eventually it recovers and you just get back to it. Then
Physios can do wonderful things.
I believe it's just regression to the mean a lot of the time. Like I have visited physios and masseuses and stuff like that from time to time. But I think generally the key thing is just keep on moving. People think
Yeah.
they should protect their injuries and stop doing stuff, and that's when the injury like really gets worse. Like I think just some sort of moderate activity daily, just to maintain some level of strength and just keep going, and eventually your body will get better, unless it's something obviously, something life changingly horrible.
I mean, I'm in the lap of luxury here. I'm a top rate massage sets me back about £7, and
Um,
an hour in the physio sets me back about a tenner. So the slightest little, when I was running, I was in the masseuse like twice a week.
okay, nice. But
I'm all-
we're recording now, by the way, Carm. Just so you know, I do a rolling start. And I got to turn. I got some lo-fi music in the background that's been putting me to sleep all morning. Trying to get some writing done at the moment. I'm turn that down. And yeah, man, so we spoke, I guess, before we start recording. We spoke last time on camera was last year, where you were in South Africa, and like
yeah.
since then you've been training pretty heavy. Your whole face has changed. Your fucking jaw has come out, man.
Yeah, I gained. Yeah, I mean, I was in a pretty bad shape then. I wasn't eating anything, so I think I was below what my kind of average weight was. My average weight was skinny anyway, and
Yeah,
I sunk like probably 5 kilos below that.
but I can just see like your whole lower jaw has
Yeah,
come out. The whole shape of your face is totally different to when last time I saw you.
yeah, I gained almost 20 kg. I think
20
it was
kg in a
17,
year.
less than a year, nine. It was about 8 months. I gained 20 kg.
That is
It was
wild.
like 17 and a half. Now I'm like on a little bit of a cut. And it's funny because I actually see someone I haven't seen for like 2 years today. And the first
Yeah.
thing he said was like, "Oh, you got big." And I was like, it's paid. It's paid off. It's better hearing it from a bloke than it is hearing it from a woman. I don't know
Yeah.
why. He's like pretty hench as well. He's obviously been working out. He's got like some pretty big shoulders, and I was just like giving him the nod, like he knows.
Orkies.
Yeah,
You've
so
gone on a bit
it's
of a journey the last few years. Because when I met you initially, like we first got connected back around 2020, I think you were like you were doing looking into copywriting and marketing, but you were initially kind of skeptical about the whole thing, right?
Yeah, I was kind of skeptical. I don't know. The idea of marketing to me like 5 years ago was like the devil. It was like it just filled me with I don't know where it filled my head with. Um, and I came in through kind of my entry into copywriting was through Dan Locke, who that was like because I was like Googled what is copywriting. That's how I basically started.
Well,
And
where
then
did
just
you
started
where did hang on? No, that's not where you started because something put that word in your head before you Googled it. So where did that come from?
basically I Googled how to make money online.
Ah, okay, yes, thank you,
And
thank you.
then and then it came up with a list of stuff and I just crossed off the scams and like the bullshit stuff, crossed off like crypto, stocks, didn't have any money to didn't have anything to invest to start off with. And then it was like graphic design, no, web building, no, coding, too long to learn, copywriting. And I was like, I'm already a pretty half decent writer. And Dan Locke's telling me I can make 10 grand a month within 2 weeks. So I was like,
Do it.
give me the money.
Had you actually like? Did you used to write before for pleasure, or did you have a hobby? Were you into music or something else?
Yeah, I used to write kind of like I used to have write kind of like songs, kind of rap. I had like a very short rap career. I think you've seen the rap video, haven't you? Have you seen that?
Did I see your rap video? Oh, that was
I'm
you.
sure.
Like, yeah, it was like you sort of in front of your washing machine at home talking
Yeah,
about
yeah,
some sort of hippie anti-capitalist nonsense, right?
yeah. That's the one. So I used to write. I mean, I wrote a lot more songs than I ever produced. And I used to write like short stories. I used to write like Star Wars fan fiction when I was like 13. Didn't have any original ideas, so I just stole other people's characters.
Okay.
So yeah, and reading and writing I've always been interested in. So it seemed like a no-brainer to get into copywriting.
Anyone in your family was like entrepreneurial type or an artistic type of person or a writer?
Yeah, I guess my dad is kind of entrepreneurial in the very old school sense of like starting his own bricks and mortar businesses.
Mm-hmm.
He had like a many different kind of jobs when I was younger. He started off as like a fruit machine guy. This is
Mm-hmm.
when I was real young. He had a van and I guess he rented them out to pubs and he would service them and then
Oh, you mean like the what they call the pokies in Australia, like
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
gambling machines. You press the
The one armed
buttons.
bandits. Yeah,
Cool.
he was, and then he taught himself how to do kind of not stained glass windows, like lead lined windows that have patterns on it. I don't know how he taught himself to do that. So we fitted windows. And then he started like before the days of Tinder, he started he started a dating agency, I guess.
Okay.
It was executive register. So it was
Yeah.
obviously aimed at like kind of like higher class people, and he would match people together. And then
Was
the
that
funny thing
pre-internet?
yeah, that was pre-internet. I remember he had a typewriter up until like 2012, like an
Amazing.
electric typewriter in his office. And yeah, the funny thing about that business was he was doing it for long enough that the clients that he had, he would hook them up, and then enough of them got married. But then, like 5 years later, they would come back get divorced. So then he started doing like a what do they call it, like mediation. So he said it ended up
Brilliant.
mediation ended up like being more of his business than the
Going vertical in the funnel, right?
yeah.
Just stacking on more products in the back
Yeah,
end.
exactly. It's the upsell, isn't it? If you feel like getting divorced, I'm your man.
Yeah, brilliant. I love it. I
Yeah, I
love
mean,
it.
I guess yeah, it takes a kind of entrepreneurial mind. So yeah, he's always been self. I've never known him from to have to be employed.
Okay.
Anyone
And
else?
did he like know about copywriting, marketing, all this kind of stuff? Was he interested in it?
He kind of did, but not really like at any kind of depth. He was one of the few people that knew what copywriting was. But I said, I'm going to be a copywriter, and he's like, okay, cool, you can make loads of
Okay.
money doing that. So he had like a brief idea of what it was.
Brilliant. Um, and who was the first person who gave you money? What was the first thing you got paid to do?
God, the first thing I got paid to do was Upwork. was Upwork. It was I started off writing content,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like $20 for 2,000 words on a blog.
Sorry, going.
Which I mean, it got me writing, so it got me writing, and it allowed me to like get a bit of traction on my Upwork profile, so I could then get higher paid jobs. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was a grind. I mean, there's I looked on Upwork like recently, and those jobs are still on there, and I can imagine the Chat GPT drivel that people must be handing in
Yeah,
for those kind
yeah,
of jobs.
yeah. It's but we won't talk about that because it's a boring subject. But I'm sure there's plenty of. I'm the pendulum swings one way, it swings the other way. There was, a few months of this idea that we're all going to be fucked. No one's going to have any work anymore. And then it's like, oh shit, actually, probably there's going to be just as much work as there ever was before. And probably there's going to be actually a bit of extra work for a while with people like undoing all the shit that got delivered by ChatGPT. Seems like the backlash
Yeah,
has kicked in pretty hard already.
yeah, the backlash is on the jobs on Upwork that I look at like 90% of the jobs. So if I detect AI, you're fired instantly,
Yeah.
basically.
It's um anyway, a different conversation. At what point did you actually say, this is actually going to work out? I can probably make some money doing this.
Um, I'm still not sure.
What?
No, I'm sure. I had a bit of a bad week at the beginning of this week. I was like, I had one of those days where I was like, I quit. I quit copywriting. I'm out. I've had enough. But I've turned it around quickly. But yeah, no, I mean, I guess when I invested in my first coach, well, probably before that, because I had the confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah,
Who
I
was
made
it?
some money. The first coach was actually the first thing I bought was from Brennan Hopkins.
Oh
I
yeah.
bought his. Yeah, and you were on there. You were the bonus content.
That's right, I was. Of course you
Yeah,
bought off Brennan, another fucking dude with long hair. You're like, yeah, I like that guy's
yeah,
style.
yeah. I see him like drinking wine on Zoom calls and stuff, and I was like, yeah, I like this
That's
guy's. I like this guy.
aspirational.
Yeah,
I like his aspirational lifestyle.
yeah. But no, that was the first thing I bought, and that kind of allowed me to have a bit of confidence in like I kind of know what this is actually easier than I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, I guess the first job where I started making like decent money was through Upwork. A guy that I had quite a long relationship with. It was a guy that it's funny I bumped into him today, and he was feeding me loads of jobs. He had a small agency, and my rate went up from like $20 for 2,000 words to like 50 to $100 per an email, and I was
Mm-hmm.
just like, this is incredible.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice when you first start getting better money and you see, hey, actually, you know what? There's like a pretty decent lifestyle to be had out of this.
Hmm.
Um, without actually like working 16 hours a day grinding, on like stuff that would like, it's not like you're down a diamond mine or something like that, but just on stuff like that's incredibly repetitive and boring or just not interesting.
Hmm.
When you see this, oh, there's actually a real opportunity here. That's a good feeling.
I think the thing for me is like creative as well, like using my mind. Like I used to do manual labor, and I mean I've had some real boring ass jobs in my time. Like I worked in two separate cardboard factories.
Mm-hmm.
That was like mind-numbingly boring, like mind-numbingly boring. And then I became a decorator, which was a little bit more. I enjoyed it because you're a different place all the time. Like you finish
Mm-hmm.
one job, you go to the next job. You're working outside in the summer, but also pretty repetitive and boring, and just non. Your brain just you can just turn your brain off. It's just like just unplug your brain and do it. So using my mind for the work, being creative, it makes it really interesting for me.
You still writing for your clients now, or you do anything else besides writing copy?
No, just writing for clients now. I have a few ideas bubbling away of like my own offers.
Mm-hmm.
Me and my girlfriend were in the process of launching an offer, but that's kind of we put that on the back burner while we sort out the visa for Australia. But that's ready to go. We just need to like find a way of getting clients for that, and then like, we've built a program. We've designed a program. Well, she designed the program, and
She the coach?
she's a psychologist. So we're just trying to find a way of like packaging it into like a program rather than just like her selling her hours basically.
Yes.
And we got a pretty we think we've got a good idea
Nice.
um that the market is probably that hopefully there's a market for. I think I'm fairly confident there's a market for this thing.
Well, I won't I don't think I'll drift this call into a consulting because those tend to be stuff like where you ask questions that
Yeah.
maybe you don't want the answers published, you know. So we'll just steer away from that a little bit. Um, yeah, I wanted to kind of get back to this idea that when you start out, you were very skeptical about the whole idea of marketing, and then you've kind of, I think, gone in a different direction where you're at this point now, a couple of years later, you're like, oh, okay, you've become very sort of pro entrepreneurship, very about like sort of free enterprise.
Yeah.
Where I think maybe when I met you a couple of years ago, you didn't really believe in that as much. So what
I
changed?
mean, I did believe in free enterprise, but I have definitely changed. Like, yeah, I mean, I was a socialist then, and probably I still lean very much to the left. But I think travel has most people they travel and they become more liberal. I think it's made me. I don't think it's like a political shift, but more just like a shift into like reality, into like this is how the world works.
Travel didn't
Like,
make me more liberal. Travel made me a lot more conservative.
yeah, how so?
It's just like you you grow up in a well organized Western country where there's some semblance of the rule of law and order, although it's kind of less true these days. But like, where there's some sort of sense that there's a proper authority and that, if you like act like a fucking dickhead, you're gonna come a cropper. and and you think like, okay, there's some sort of there's a sense of order in the world on some level. And then you step outside of like Western democracies where there's a bit of a nanny state and everyone's life is managed to some extent into places where there's not really much of a safety net, and you see how like really like raw things are.
It's like the Wild West, like every man for himself kind of thing.
Yeah, and you like there's also we also have these kind of like Rousseauian notions of like the noble savage existing in poorer places in European culture, and it's like no, people are fucking ruthless everywhere. And like
Yeah.
the state, I mean, as for all of its faults, the state is actually a restraining force on like the barbarity of people and against their neighbors.
Yeah, and I mean, I also think it's like the safety net is like a blessing and a curse because it kind of kills the because I don't know, like kind of being on the edge makes is what drives entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if I got comfortable with money, what would be my drive? Like if you give me $1 million, I probably wouldn't work for 6 months. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, you do good work when there's a gun to your head. Everyone
uh,
does.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I just yeah, I understand what you're saying. I saw that, and I just saw the fact that I don't know. I guess I've had like quite an easy life. My parents weren't rich, but they weren't poor either. Middle class, and I never really, when I was a kid, I thought I was struggling because I didn't have like the latest pair of Nikes or like, do you know what I mean? I couldn't get the video game that I wanted that just all my friends had,
Yeah.
which I thought was I thought that was the struggle back
Yeah.
then. Now I realize, yeah, the struggle's out there, and most people don't have that safety net, and if they're not hustling, if they're not grafting, if they're not looking after themselves, their family, yeah, they're just going to starve.
Yeah.
Like for the majority of the world, like I mean, I've been traveling in India, Nepal, Southeast Asia. The majority of people are subsistence farming that I've seen. The majority of people are just growing food and then eating it or selling it to like buy other food or to pay their rent.
Yeah. Outside of a few like sort of blessed places, a lot of the world is living hand to mouth and always has been. And
Mm-hmm.
it's when you live in a relatively wealthy Western country, it's hard to even understand that that's how it is because it's not what you see. It's not what you see in your environment. It's not what you see in media. You think this idea of like, this, oh, there's a war, famine, but it's just this little place over here. And that's an anomaly. The normality
Mm-hmm.
is what we have here. And it's like when you go
Yeah.
travel, you realize, oh shit, no, what you have in sort of, pretty like developed Western nations, that's the anomaly. And
Yeah.
normality is utter fucking chaos.
Yeah, it is. It is chaos. Yeah, that's the thing. Like the West is, like you said, it's so managed. It's so managed and manicured, and kind of like everything's just in its place. And then when you step out into like the real world, you realize that it's survival. The like the very basics of survival. You're not that far from just having nothing.
Mm.
You're not that far from having absolutely zero. And I guess that's what's kind of turned me around in terms of, yeah, no, I used to kind of like blame the government for all of my problems, like my personal problems. I would
Hmm.
find a way to like trace that back to some kind of Tory policy that I hated,
Hmm.
or a history of colonialism or something. And like, don't get me wrong, there's governments could definitely do better than they are doing. But I realize now that I'm responsible for my own outcomes. Like 99% of what happens to me is, well, there's a lot of outside factors, but I'm the one that can actually do something if I
Hmm.
want to improve my life, if I want to live a better life, if I want to provide for my family, for my future family. I can't just sit and wait for the government to like, oh, if we get a better government in place, my life's going to be perfect. Like that ain't going to happen.
Yeah, well,
Like,
I've gone like, far more in a sort of libertarian direction. I'm just like, it's not that I want a better government. I just want it to be less fucking government. Full stop.
mhm,
I pretty much at this point, like in poor places, not this way. In Western countries, most of the social problems that we're seeing are all downstream of the welfare state. That people are
mhm,
being given incentive, are basically bad life choices are incentivized at the
mhm,
individual and the group level. And so like
mhm,
people look around, they see all kinds of like ill shit going on in their communities, wherever it's like town centers boarded up, um, like lots of like, younger people who don't have much to do and like antisocial behavior and all this shit. And like I believe a lot of that these days is downstream of the welfare state, where people are who make suboptimal life choices are incentivized to make suboptimal life choices that seem like you're being, and the reason why is because of policies that seem compassionate at the time, but actually lead to more disorder, like years down the road. So like
don't
I
you think
think
there?
I think a welfare state like helps the first generation of people, and after 3 generations, you've created a welfare class. It's completely dysgenic.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. That you can't, yeah, like the welfare class of people. But I also think that people are gonna make shit life choices regardless.
Yeah, but there's incentive. We are incentive. There's like market sort of effect. There's almost a market for every human kind of everything that humans desire, and the reason markets tend to work better than managed economies is because the pricing signal in a free enterprise scenario, people will not do something unless there's a good outcome to doing it. Like there's a beneficial outcome to do it because there's the pricing signal. So you won't spend your time doing a thing unless you can get something for it that's going to improve your life. But when
Mm-hmm.
you're put in a situation where, you're being given goods, benefits of some description, for making what tend to be, externally like suboptimal life choices that are not going to make you happy long term, you'll tend to do those bad things again and again. So like,
Yeah, yeah, and I agree. And I don't know, it's just weird because I see people like here where I'm living, and I just think, what happens if they run out? Like, what happens if these people run out? And I mean, you say that people say that there's no safety net here, but there is a safety net, which is like
it's other
family
people.
and community is the
Ah,
safety net, which we don't really have in the UK. People just living like insular, like in their little small cells, and
and that didn't used to be that way in Western countries. That happened because of the welfare state, like basically
Mhm,
isolating people where they have their fundamental relationship is to the state rather than to their family members in a lot of
mhm.
cases.
Yeah, it's like all the people here in like the towns and the cities. In when I was in Nepal during the lockdown, and all of the industry closed, and everyone just went back to their village. and the people there are like just they have enough food, they're growing enough food. So although they were earning no money, they were fine. Well, I don't know if they were fine, but they survived.
If that happened in most places, I think in Ireland there's still enough community that people do kind of look out for each other. I've been surprised. I live in a maybe not in Dublin, but I live in a little small village where there's like two shops, sorry, two pubs, one shop. There's never two shops in one pub. It's Ireland. There's two pubs, there's one shop. There's about 1,000 people. And people like people mind their business, but people are looking out for each other. Like, the kids are looked out for. If our dog gets loose and does a runner, somebody will call me and say, I saw your dog up the street. Do you want me to
Uh-huh.
grab her for you? Or someone will just, bring her back. Like it's,
But
those,
I think that's village life. I just don't think human beings are supposed to live in these like huge, mega populated areas. I think that alone is enough to like kill the sense of community. Like when you know, like living in a village where everyone kind of knows everyone,
Mhm.
it's very hard to be dispassionate to people when you kind of
Yeah,
know them. But when you're in a city and it's just like you're just seeing strangers upon strangers upon strangers all day, every day, it's just like it's easy to like not give a fuck about your neighbor.
yeah. I think a lot has to do with growth of urban populations as well, because even 50, 60 years ago, urban populations were a lot smaller, and there were like communities in cities, like there were neighborhood communities, and at all levels of social class, from like poor to the wealthy. And I think that doesn't exist on the local level as much anymore.
Yeah, it's a sad thing. It's a sad thing. That's one of the reasons why I'm happy that my girlfriend's moving to Australia and I'm
Hmm.
going to be with a family because yeah, just to have that community around us of yeah, I mean I'm a village boy as well.
You're
I
from
much prefer
Cambridge, right?
from Cambridge, but like the villages around Cambridge. I've always lived
Okay.
in the I grew up in the city when I was like really young, but we moved to the villages when I was in like must have been 7 or 8.
And your partner, she's from Australia or grew up in Australia?
No, she's South African. She's South African.
Okay. But her family moved to Australia.
Yeah, everyone leaves South Africa. Anyone with any kind of sense and like a decent job leaves South Africa because it's a total mess. It is a total mess.
Yeah, I hear people say that a lot. It's funny. I was talking to, do you know Matthew Falcon though?
Yeah.
Like that's where he's from, and he's just like, I'm
Uh-huh.
not leaving. It's just fucking good here. Like he's in
Yeah,
Cape Town, and he says like a lot of the countries. He said I wouldn't fancy living in Johannesburg or in Dublin. The crime levels there are a bit extreme, but he's like Cape Town's still good and still a pretty nice place to live.
yeah. Cape Town's kind of its own because they have like kind of like states there, don't they? I don't really know much about the politics, but Cape Town is like its own kind of. It's way more kind of modern and it's a kind of like the hipstery place. That's the vibe I got when I was there of South
Okay,
Africa. And they wanted like a Brexit. They wanted a Cape exit.
okay, yeah.
When I was there was one party who was I think they're still on the fringes, but they were like, let's just leave the rest of this shithole behind and just and just do our own thing.
Let's not go down that. Let's not go down that rabbit hole. Let's move
but it,
on.
it is a beautiful country. It's like
Hmm.
and a lot of the people there are like so friendly. And actually, like when I was there, I was actually kind of close to where Matthew is from. I think he's from George or no, Neisner. We were going to
Hmm.
meet up, but it ended up not happening. And that area around there is some of the most beautiful country I've ever seen. Um, but socially and politically, it's like it's broken. It's
Okay.
totally broken.
So how long you been in Bali for now?
This time, 7 months. So I took a year out and I was there for like 9 months before that. So I total about 2 years, just under 2 years.
Hmm. And I mean, it seems like there's a lot of like marketers and people doing online living there. It's become like digital nomad sort of place
It is a
recently.
hotspot, yeah, for digital nomads. If you go into like the cafes and the tourist areas, the expat areas, everyone's on a Mac. Like everyone's working.
How do the
Probably
people
lots.
there feel about it? They go to it? Does it work?
I don't know. I'm not entirely sure how they feel about it. I mean, the Balinese are some of the nicest people you'll ever meet on planet Earth because of
Mhm.
their religion and their culture. It's just like such an open and giving. It's why the place is so popular because there's like another island, like 30 minutes boat ride to the east where no one goes because they
What's that
have a
island?
different Lombok.
Okay, and what just different culture, different
It's a
feeling of the
different
place.
culture. Here is Hindu. The majority of the rest of the islands are Muslim,
Hmm.
and it's like a different culture, different language, different food. It's like all the islands are very, very different. And the people here are just so warm and giving. That's why it's so popular. But yeah, I speak to some of like the older people who are in their like 70s or 80s, and I try to talk to them about like what they've seen in their life,
Hmm.
like how much change they must have seen. Because even in like the few years that I've been here, the development is crazy. Um, and like I said, that you see the older people, the generation who are like kind of our age, like 30, 40, 50, they're still doing like a lot of them are still rice farmers. Whereas anyone younger than that is like working in bars, restaurants, tourism. So you can see once that older generation kind of fades away, there's going to be a huge cultural shift here, which is kind of sad. I hope it doesn't lose its culture because the culture is so beautiful.
And it's changed a lot. I mean, I've never been, but I loved watching the videos when I was into like boats and woodworking. One of the things that really captured my imagination is there's two British guys, two really interesting dudes. You should look them up. Lorne and Lawrence Blair. They were sort of like these. Um, they were obviously from wealthy family. Clearly, sort of privately educated young lads who obviously were bored of life in the UK in the 70s and just said, "Fuck it, we're going traveling." Got
Mm-hmm.
a like a video camera, it would have been a film camera, 16 probably 16 millimeter camera at that time,
That'd have been that'd have been well heavy lugging that around back in those days, wouldn't it? It'd have been
and decided
huge.
to just go make some movies. And they made a series of documentaries called The Ring of Fire, starting from the 1970s. And I think they continued. They made three or four of them right up into the mid 1980s. I think maybe National Geographic or some other US network picked them up eventually. Man, there's some amazing stuff. But the stuff they had of Bali at that time, it's just so beautiful. And actually, I think one of them died in some kind of freak accident out there. And the surviving brother um, built himself like or had built one of those like the traditional Balinese homes where it's like the open timber construction and there's all screens, so like it's like kind of built on a hillside, so there's like a kind of natural air conditioning. It just looks like such an amazing. But that was
Mm-hmm.
like pre the massive influx of tourism because like that was from up to the mid 80s. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know when did it open up and explode in the 2000s sometime or the 90s.
I think before that, I think it's always been kind of popular since like the 80s, but
Hmm.
never as like insanely popular as it is now. I'm not entirely sure when it blew up. But it is crazy. It's crazy. Some of the areas are like I just don't go to because it's like just a constant influx of tourists. Like where I used
Hmm.
to live in Canggu, it was exhausting because you never see anyone, you never see the same face again. They're like there for like 2 days and they're gone.
Yeah.
Like the churn of people was exhausting.
Yeah, I can get that. And so how long are you going to stay there for?
Until this visa works out in Australia, basically.
You're dead set on going to Australia. You're gonna set up shop there and live there for a few years.
Yeah, well, we're getting residency, and then we're gonna just see how it works out, see what we like.
What part
Um,
of the country are you going to?
Perth.
Oh, brilliant. Connor Inch is out there.
Yeah, yeah, I know a few people in the marketing space who are up in Perth.
Yeah.
It's apparently the most isolated city on planet Earth.
Okay.
If you look at it on a map, there's like nowhere for like hundreds and hundreds of miles. There's just ocean on one side and then desert on the other side.
I gotta look at it now and see.
Like if you ever see how big Western Australia is, it's like the size of Europe, and there's just like 10 people that live there.
Well, that one thing I did notice a couple of times I visited Australia is like when you're flying home, because like the couple of times I visited was on the East Coast. I was
Hmm.
Brisbane. I never been to Sydney, but I've got family around Brisbane. So, and like get flying home, you're like, where are we? Oh, we're over Australia. A couple hours later, where are we? Yeah, we're still over Australia. Like
Yeah,
it
it's
just takes
huge.
so long to get out of Australia when you're flying back
It's
from
huge.
the East Coast back to Europe.
Well, yeah, when I was there before, I was like reading about just like the vastness of it, and there's like a shire or like a county in Western Australia that's like the size of Belgium. Well, no, it's like this, yeah, probably like I think yeah, it's like the size of a small European country, but there's like literally no one who is registered to live there. It's just desert. It's just empty nothingness. It's
Okay.
huge.
I'm just looking at Perth now, man. I never actually really looked closely before, and it is insanely isolated.
Yeah.
It's super interesting. These massive like inter what is it interstate like roads
Hmm.
coming into it. Like there's three, four major roads coming into it, and there's
But
just
where do they?
nothing. There's just nothing in
At
any
least to
direction.
nothing. Yeah, they just loop round to each other.
Oh,
But
it
yeah,
should be cool, man. It should be interesting.
yeah, I'm very excited to have a home base. Like I've been traveling for it's coming up to 5 years now. Um, and I mean, I'm not. I don't know if I class it as traveling now because I'm staying in the same place for like 6 months at a time.
Hmm.
Like last year, I did a lot of traveling. I did like 5 continents, and that was too much. My business suffered massively because of it,
Just because no daily routine.
because of no daily routine, and um, yeah, just like getting into one space, moving time zones, and then just like productivity suffering. Yeah, I don't know. I think the digital nomad dream is maybe a bit of a lie because I don't know, to start a business and be traveling, like to be properly traveling where you're like going to a new place every month.
Hmm.
I just can't see how how you would do that to launch a business and keep it to maintain it and keep it growing. Like I mean, it's doable, but yeah, I wouldn't see any growth. Like if I'm moving every month, there'd be no growth. I'd be able to just kind of like stay at the same level. If I
Hmm.
really want to grow, I have to get like deep work done. I mean, I don't have an office. I haven't had an office since I started my business. I spent most of it working on like a couch or on a sofa, just
Yeah,
off a laptop.
that's
I
not
don't have any
helpful.
no, I don't have any kind of setup. I don't have like I dream of like a $1,000 office chair. That's like my ambition in life. like like $1,000 office chair and like one of those mics that podcasters have and like a background with a bookshelf in it.
Okay, like this one.
Yeah, and a desk. You have one of those
Yeah, I
adjustable
got to sit
desks.
stand. Yeah,
Yeah, that's like my ambition in life basically at the moment because yeah, I'm sitting on like a wooden chair on a you know when people buy a chair and a table and they don't align, there's not actually enough room to get your legs in. I'm just like it's a productivity killer. um
hmm.
but you may do with what you got, but yeah, I read the deep work book. um well, I forgot what the name is. It Cal Newport,
Cal
is that the guy's
Newport.
name? Yeah, I read his book and I was like, this is amazing, but I can't implement 75% of what he's talking about because I just don't have an office space or like my own home to do it in. Even just like a keyboard, I just have a laptop, so I don't have a keyboard or a mouse because I can't fit it in. I'm basically my life is in a 70-liter backpack.
Yeah, but I think you can do it for a while. But like you say, when you want to actually set something up for yourself or like start a family or whatever, it's probably not gonna pan out. Except
Yeah.
for a very few people who are just built a bit different.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you could make it work, but you're setting up you're making it difficult for yourself. You have many things to overcome that yeah that make it difficult.
I find myself sort of like thinking of that, but then the reality is when you go visit a place, you just oh man, it's annoying. You can't get much done. Like, it's you do have to have like familiarity puts you in a better position to be able to consistently do something productive,
Hmm.
get some work done.
Yeah, like routine.
Hmm.
having a routine like last year I traveled a lot. My routine like just felt as shit. And yeah, it really affected my mental health having no routine. I was just like floundering basically. Like I just didn't know like like what to do.
I'm looking at Perth now. You said to me, I'm just looking at rental houses in Perth, and the grass
Don't tell
is
me don't tell me the price of a house. Don't tell me the price.
no. What's standing out to me, being Irish, of course, is look at the state of that lawn. It looks very dry. You know,
Yeah,
like I've realized that like the one thing that turns me off a lot of places is like if it's not really green, it's like fucking so classic Irish. If it's not really green, I don't fancy it.
I'm kind of the same. That is the one big thing in my head that I'm concerned about. If it's dry and dusty there, I'm gonna have a hard time.
Hmm.
I'm gonna have a real hard time because I mean the UK where I live, it's yeah, it's super green.
Yeah, and you think that stuff doesn't matter, but it does. Like
It
we kind of
does.
yeah, we kind of belong to places.
Yeah, I mean that's why I really loved where I lived in South Africa because it was so lush. It was on the coast, like, and there was a whole bunch of mountains that just caused loads of rainfall. It's called the Garden Route, and it was I loved it there. It was so lush and green. That's definitely the environment I feel at home in.
Nice. I'm gonna hit up Connor Inch after this call and have a little chat with them about what's life like in Perth.
Dry, brittle.
Maybe not. It looks quite nice, man. The map looks good. Like it looks like a well organized, well laid out city with some good like urban green spaces. Looks like a cool place.
Mhm. And apparently the culture there is quite rich. This is what another hesitation I have about Australia is um, not to like say they've got no culture, but do they have any culture? I don't like the new world. I think it's the new world. South Africa's kind of the same.
Yeah,
Um, Australia, when I was there, I found it, and America, where it's just like everything's like 150 years old,
yeah.
and it
I find
feels a little bit,
exactly the same
it,
when
I find it a little almost like soulless a little bit. Like these, like even when I was in Nashville last year, it was just like yeah, outside of the city center, most of this stuff was built in the last like 50 to 70 years.
I didn't it's been a long time since I visited the US, and but I did find that in Australia where I felt like none of this was here 50 years ago was the vibe I got in Brisbane. And that's not that it's bad, like, that's progress, but there is something immensely comforting about like, seeing stuff like where people were, seeing ruins that are 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years old, which is like that, going to Italy and you see stuff like it's been preserved for the last couple of thousand years and it's still being
Mm-hmm.
used every day as part of people's towns and lives. That's just something,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is about that. It's just, there's a very nice
So it's
feeling
like
of continuity and permanence.
yeah, continuity, like lineage, and like yeah. I mean, I didn't appreciate that enough until I went to South Africa, and then I went back to the UK from South Africa, and I realized just how quaint and old and British the UK actually is. Like, I never noticed it. Like, and then I saw it, and I was like, yeah, I do actually kind of like this as much as
Hmm.
I moan about the UK.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, this is what it's. There's a lot of appeal to it for people from the US, but I think then there's also the flip side of that is that it can stop people thinking about like progress and what's next as much. I don't know.
Yeah.
That there's never everything has a trade off, right?
Mhm. Yeah, that was the flip side that I found when I was in Sydney. It was that like everything's designed, whereas in like in England, nothing's designed. Like
Just
London
happened.
is absolute mess. Yeah, like I find it really interesting. I used to watch these like series of videos on YouTube about like how they built the tube, how the tube evolved in London, just and it was all it sounds really dry, but it evolved just from like from what the needs of like the communities were and how the
Hmm.
community shifted, changed, and like where the like popular communities were. And yeah, it was just a mess. And then when I went to Sydney, like the public transport, how efficient the public transport was there because all the cities had been designed, like the suburbs had all been designed from scratch in like the 70s and 80s.
Hmm.
So everything worked really well. So that's the trade-off. Stuff works and is efficient.
You went to Nashville for Kevin Rogers' event, right? For Copy Chief.
Yeah, yeah,
And that was actually after you and me did work together last year, where we did Cash from Connections, the networking program, and you said, "Fuck
yeah,
it, I'm gonna
yeah,
go meet some people now."
yeah, yeah. That who was what was the name of the guy who with the flash suits?
Guy with the flash suits.
And he had just been to a convention and he was like full of energy and he was buzzing and he was like and you were giving him advice on like how to follow up with these people.
Was he? Oh, you mean
American guy,
Reginald? Reginald
Reggie.
Bray.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He'd been to a convention. I don't know which one it was, and then I just
He'd been
felt
to
the energy.
Amber
And I was
Spears' Four Rooms mastermind. I think she had done something in New York last year.
like, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah, and I was just like, after like literally a week after that, I booked the ticket. I was like, let's
it's
go, baby. And yeah, I had a blast. I had a blast. That was the first time like meeting other copywriters since I had like a small meet up in London when I first started, maybe 3 years ago,
mm-hmm.
and meeting all these people in the room and like just hanging out with like legendary names. I saw like I saw saw Paris Lompropolis like singing Purple Rain on karaoke in like a college bar in downtown Nashville. That was a memory that's going to stay with me for a while. So yeah,
Nice.
it was a great experience. I'm so glad I went. I'd go if he's having it next year and I can wrangle it financially and with my girlfriend, then I'm going.
Did it translate into new business for you? Actually going there and meeting
Translated,
people?
it translated into a few bits of business, yeah. But my major takeaway from that was, um, I guess a couple of takeaways was like the community, the feeling of like, hold on, this is real. It's not just me on my own behind a laptop on the other side of the world, isolated. There is actually a community of people, and you see the community on Facebook and stuff, and you chit chat and get on calls like this to stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But actually being in a room with like 100, 200 other people who are like dedicating their life to this, and seeing that everyone is a maverick. Everyone in this community is like
Yeah, a bunch of
a
weirdos.
a maverick or a fuck up or a dropout or a weirdo who's just decided, you know what, I'm just gonna do what I want to do, and they've made it work. And yeah, it was inspiring to see people with like the same mentality of like, you know, almost like kind of fuck the world mentality of like I'm doing my own thing, I'm forging my own path.
Yeah, I mean, look, even this idea about like how you present yourself, and there's a need to have a certain like standard and all that. And I agree with that. Like I've got a friend who's a real snappy dresser. Like he spends so much money on clothes. And he's like, John, why do you dress so bad? You should just dress better. Like, it's not a priority for me. I mean, I must admit, he always looks great. He's always dressed to a T. And and so he should be. He spends thousands on clothes, like, a lot of money on clothes. Um, but I just don't feel like it. And it's like, what's good about this industry is that it doesn't matter if you
Uh-huh.
decide that's who you want to be, and you can actually just show up, connect to people, and like people will accept you kind of for however you are. There's
You
not.
are you wearing pajama bottoms right now on this
I'm
call?
wearing a pair of gym shorts and I've got no shoes on.
I don't want to see. Don't get your toes out. Don't turn this into an OnlyFans.
Yeah. So and like, this is life, and it's nice and easy, and everything is kind of, I said I don't want to commute. I don't want to be going to some office. I don't have, and then you just make an effort, and then you set up your life, and it's like the way you want it to be, and it's good.
Yeah, yeah, it's almost like counterculture. That's the kind of vibe that I got from being in there. Even like the super successful people, like what's the guy that does the launches? Jeff Walker.
Yeah.
This guy. He did a talk and he was one of the speakers and I super connected with what he said because the vast majority of his talk was about him, that what he does with his buddies couple of months. He lives in Colorado, and he goes down the Colorado River on a canoe or a kayak. He takes the tents. He's got food and stuff in the kayak. They go down the river. They camp, and they spend like a week doing this. And he's like, this is like the main reason why I do what I do is because so I can enjoy these moments and say like, I'm going to take like 10, 15 days off to just spend it in nature doing the thing that I'm like super passionate about. And yeah, I really resonated with that because yeah, I don't know. What one thing that annoys me real a lot is people that moan about their life situation but don't do anything to fix it.
Hmm.
So I'm like, okay, you moan once and you didn't do anything to fix it. Okay. You moan a second time, you didn't do anything to fix it. You moan a third time, I'm like, well, you don't hate it that much. You just enjoy moaning. Like, like take action to improve your life. And
Yes.
that's what everyone's doing.
Yeah. That thing about you just said about Jeff Walker, that is good because there's something I've been putting off for a couple of years now. I need to take some time out to go sailing with a buddy of mine. And I just never have the time because she's always busy now. I've got young kids, so it's a little bit different, but that can't be my excuse either. I need to actually make that happen this year because I'm. It's my friend who owns the boat. He's not. Well, he would hate me saying this because he's a big old. He's 60 now. He tells everyone he's 50. He's a big Jack Chad. He's so funny. He tells everyone he's 50. I don't even think his girlfriend knows what age he really is.
Oh shit.
Or
Spoiler.
I should say girlfriends because he usually has two or three. But he's so funny. But like he's not getting any younger, and he'd hate me saying that. But it's true. I need to go. I need to go check out. Go catch up with him.
Where would you sail? Like around Ireland?
He
Or
no. He lives on his sailboat. He does a triangle. He's perpetually on the move. He's got three places. He's got Portugal. Then he's got four places. He's got Portugal. He's got the Canary Islands, and he's got the Caribbean, and he's got the Azores. So he goes in a diamond shape in the Atlantic Ocean every year, just going round and round in it. Follow the
or
seasons.
what size boat is it? God, I would get real nervous on a small boat going across the Atlantic.
It's like 23 meters, like about 72 foot.
How long does that take to cross from like Canaries to the Caribbean?
It's like sometimes like 5, 6, 7 days, depends on the wind.
And I would be hella nervous. I would be out of my element in that
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, I've only done a few days sailing with him, but it's actually fine. Like the worst part is the seasickness, but once that passes, like the fact that like it's just you're outside of time. Like you do have to keep
Mm-hmm.
an eye on time because you need to kind of record your movements so you kind of know you're making progress towards where you're going. But like really it's quite a simple thing. Like he's like most he'd check his positions once a day maybe. With some very simple equipment. He doesn't really have like big, a lot of complex tech on board like a lot of sailboats would now.
Simple stuff is the most reliable.
Yeah, I think it's just the simplicity, and he's been sailing so much of his life that he's like, he can navigate by landmarks, he can navigate by stars, movements of birds, all that stuff.
It's crazy. And what? He just lives that life.
Just lives that
How
life.
long? How long has he been living that life?
It's pretty much his whole life since he was 8 years old.
Since he was 8.
Yeah, his old man was bored. The old man was a French foreign legionnaire, and he came back from fighting one of these, mental private wars the French used to fight in Africa that no one ever heard about, where they're trying to get steal territory off people so they can open a diamond mine or some other ill shit. And they said they have some military in there unofficially. And his old man was doing all these mad deployments with the Foreign Legion for years and came back, got a job in a factory, like, sort of civilian life, married and settled down. And after 3, 4 years of that, he's like, this is boring as hell. Like he couldn't readjust to civilian life after years of just being like
Yeah.
being a special forces soldier, doing crazy shit. And so he decided, for whatever reason, he'd sell the family home, grab the wife and kids, and take them all off to Thailand and learn to sail a boat. And they went off. His old man bought a boat off some Thai captain, told the Thai captain, right, you teach me to sail. I'll just pay you, here's your money now, you teach me how to sail the boat. And that was how they started. And his old man was obsessed with treasure. And they went treasure hunting in the Indian Ocean. And they eventually like recovered a lot of silver from a
They
sunken
actually.
galleon,
Wow.
sunken Spanish galleon from the 1500s or something like that, 1600s.
That's crazy.
It's a wild story. This is his life. And so a friend was 8 years old when his father took him to Thailand in the 70s and spent his whole life pretty much on a boat sailing.
And how does he finance that? How do you know him?
It's a very complicated story. You don't have time for today. But he's sort of well known in the world of sailing as a kind of, when I'll send you some pictures. When his boat sails into a harbor, it's a bit of an event. It's like it's like something from Waterworld. Like you remember Kevin Costner in Waterworld? That's
Yeah,
kind of his
yeah.
aesthetic. Like it's not some big shiny white polished yacht. It's like it's a proper 73-foot long, real wild looking wooden boat that looks like it's come out of an anthropological exhibit in a museum. And he's this huge 6'8" German with like a massive like Neanderthal looking jaw and head. It looks like he's got an anthropological look about him as well. And he's just got this, he's just this, and he's like, he's a very flamboyant character. And like wherever he goes, he causes a scene.
Crazy. It sounds like someone needs to write a book about this guy's life.
Yeah, I talked about that to him. He's like, there's enough fucking books written already. You have to live it. He's like Werner Herzog or something.
Yeah, that would be the caption on the bottom. That'd be on the blur. That exact line.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
I think we got to wrap it up, Colby. Just about over an hour. I better go do some
Yeah,
do some actual writing today. I've got stuff I'm meant to deliver. How about you?
it's bedtime here.
Is it? Okay. No, I'll let you
Right,
go to
man,
bed
I'm
then.
having a little bit. I'm having a bit of time off anyway.
Okay. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, it's great to talk. I feel like we could have gone on for another 2 hours.
Yeah, seriously, it's great to see you looking so fit and healthy. And when do you plan to make the move to Australia?
As soon as the paperwork and the finances say yes, then we'll be making the move. I'm
Awesome.
very aware that it's the cost of living is going to like more than quadruple when I go there. So having a handy stack of cash in my bank account is like the main factor, really.
You got good clients these days, good business coming in.
It's been up and down the last couple of months, but things are starting to look, well, starting to improve for sure. Looks like they're on the up.
But put yourself out there, make more noise.
Yeah,
That's all there is to
plan.
it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Cool. Take care of yourself, John.
Talk to you soon, Colby.
See you
Pleasure.
later.
Cheers.